Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Well, what's happening? Well, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, out of the clear blue sky today, says that, well, are we sure it was a bullet that hit Donald Trump's ear?
It sounds like a case for James Bond, and which is why we played that theme.
I have a question.
Tony Carbonetti, you had a comment on that.
Yeah. Has he been there? We know the former head of the Secret Service never went there. Why was not the former head of the Secret Service and the head of the FBI not there that night? They both have planes, as far as I know. Okay.
Is this a politically influenced answer? I mean, in other words, the first people to say this at all was that very night when CNN and MSNBC said it. So now all of a sudden, the FBI director is saying that? I mean, I don't know what the truth is anymore.
And it feeds into all these conspiracy theories. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too. And to hear the FBI director, John, when he said it, he responded, by the way, to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan's question. And he said, well, when Trump was shot, and he goes, wait. We don't know if he was shot. I mean, come on.
Didn't the New York Times have a photo that they were very proud of, that they blew up and it showed the bullet whizzing by his head?
Well, what about the firefighter? What about the firefighter who was killed by a bullet?
Wait a second. There's no doubt he was shot at, and whether he was missed or not, he was shot as attempted assassination. That's the important thing.
Yes, it was.
And so why is the FBI director saying this? I mean, at this time, guys, come on.
Because maybe he's mad at Trump because Trump said he should resign.
Well, Trump said he should resign because he said he was inept. And you know why he said he should resign, you guys? Because during the questioning yesterday of Christopher Wray, he was asked, what is Biden's mental capability? You've had meetings with him. And he said, oh, he's been sharp as a tack.
Yesterday?
Essentially, that's what he said.
Who said that?
Christopher Wray said, I've had ongoing meetings with Biden and I haven't seen any problems with his health. That's what he said.
He must do acupuncture. Doesn't bother him.
That's what he said.
I never met the man, so I don't know the man. But it seems like the Department of Justice has undue influence. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, that's a nice way to say it.
You have a job to do.
Now, the other thing I said yesterday, and I want to know how you guys feel about it, is on January 6th, whether it's the FBI or other federal agencies, because I don't know who, we're just using the FBI, like give me a Xerox. Federal agencies took pictures of every single person on January 6th. Now, these people protesting with Hamas flags, burning American flags. Are we taking pictures of them?
Well, their faces are covered. Most of them cover their faces.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you also, John, President Trump came out today and said if you desecrate a flag, and it is illegal if it's someone else's flag, you should have 1 year behind bars. You should have one, and that would deter people.
We're going to talk about that. One more question from our in-house lawyer here, Ed Cox, with a legal degree. The judge this morning said that Hunter Biden's attorneys, that they lied on their court papers.
They said that their case was the same as the special counsel case down in Florida, which was dismissed because special counsels were deemed by the judge to be unconstitutional. The only difference, and they tried to liken their case to that case, the only difference is that the Weiss was appointed special counsel after the case was started, and that is the difference. And the defense attorneys covered that up.
So they weren't findings of the special counsel. The special counsel picked up on the work of others.
Became a special counsel in the middle of the trial.
Okay. Tony Carbonetti, you were the chief?
The chief of staff to Mayor Giuliani. And let me tell you something. if Mayor Giuliani had been president and the FBI director and the head of the Secret Service did not go to that site that night, both of them would have been fired the next day.
What if they were burning flags in New York City and he was the mayor?
The burning flag thing is a double-edged sword.
Not if it's someone else's
flag. If it's someone else's, right, exactly.
Then you're destroying
property. But, even the guys that fought in World War II said they fought for your right to burn that flag.
Not someone else's.
Rita, we have a special guest on.
We sure do. We have Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary. Ari, first, let me just get your reaction. Did you hear that the FBI director just came out and was waffling as to whether President Trump was shot or not? I mean, this is crazy.
Well, first, let me say hello. Thank you for having me on to everybody, including Tony Carbonetti.
How are you, brother?
We all love you, Ari. We all love you.
That caught my ear as soon as he said it.
What would President Bush have done if the head of the Secret Service did not go to that site that night, Ari?
Well, actually, I don't care what the head of the Secret Service goes to visit or not visit. I care more about whether they're competent. And everything we saw about the former director of the Secret Service told me she was not competent in the way she handled it. Just think about how Christopher Wray answered a few questions, and she refused to answer any. Yeah. That was all the difference in the world. And I've seen this with law enforcement, unfortunately, where they just have a clam-up mentality. And I would fight with them sometimes. I say, you got to say something. You got to give the public something. Don't give away things that are sensitive. But that was my real big beef with her, not to mention the fact she oversaw an agency that absolutely failed to protect a presidential candidate.
Yeah, no question. What did you make of the FBI director now opening the window about maybe it's not a bullet that hit President Trump? What do you think of that?
Yeah, that was fascinating to me. I don't think it matters whether it was shrapnel or the bullet itself. The president clearly got hit, and his ear was clearly bleeding. And whether it missed him by an inch or missed him by 10 inches, does that matter? Now, it'd be nice to just know the facts about everything, so that is an important note whenever we do get the final report from these guys. Hopefully they're going to have that information.
Yeah, I agree. Ari Fleischer, all these protests are still going on because Benjamin Netanyahu is still in town. He's still in Washington. The protests have been going on forever, but they're really, ramping up. And I found it incredibly distasteful last night when we saw the American flag being burned and taken down from right outside of the Capitol, right there at Union Station, and they put up Palestinian flags. Luckily, they replaced it. Some Republican congressmen replaced it. But what's your reaction that we're not hearing enough, I think, from leadership saying, don't do this?
Just for the emotional, visceral level, I cannot wait for Donald Trump to win, and that way we deport these idiots. It's that simple to me. If you are not an American citizen and you come to this great country on a visa and you burn our flag, you have no right to be in this country.
And
Joe Biden won't do anything about it. I have full faith and confidence Donald Trump will deport them.
I hope that one of our federal agencies, whoever took all those pictures on January 6th, have taken similar pictures yesterday.
Yeah, there's all kinds of video cameras, and first of all, we have 23 arrests, so we don't even need to see their face. We have their fingerprints. The 23 need to be tracked. We need to see if the Biden Justice Department is prosecuting them the same way they prosecuted others who engaged in trespass or attacked police on Capitol Hill on January 6th. Are these 23 hooligans going to get 3 years, 5 years? Or are they going to be right back on the streets tomorrow to protest again?
You know what happened, Ari? And you reminded me. Remember when there was the big issue at Hamilton Hall in Columbia, and the people who were, quote, holding people hostage, blocking, destroying. And I'm not talking about the peaceful
tents. Let them all go.
Yeah, yes, that's my point. They arrested them, so they had their address, they had their information, fingerprinted them, and then suddenly, quietly, a few months later, they let them go and claimed they didn't know who they were, but they had their information when they arrested them, Ari.
That's exactly right. And that was New York City. That was the DA of New York City, Alvin Bragg, of Manhattan. And now we have a federal matter. But the federal government has a track record here. What did they do to the people on January 6th who attacked the police? If they do anything less to these people than they did to the people on January 6th who attacked the police, once again, it's more of an example how this is a politicized Justice Department.
No question. Ari, before we let you go, I also want to hit on President Biden's speech last night. It was painful. What did you think?
Well, it was a lack of a speech. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't an address to the nation to explain why he decided not to run again. It was a political endorsement that he snuck onto the network. They otherwise never would have carried the thing, or they shouldn't have. He never took responsibility for why he was announcing he was leaving. The honest thing would have been if he had just said, I looked at the polls, I can't win, and therefore I'm pulling out. And I want Kamala Harris to win. That's what this is all about. It was such an empty speech. And if everything in America is as good as he was saying in that speech last night, then why was he losing?
Yeah, and he never said health had an issue. He didn't say he was pushed out. Ed Cox.
Every time he asks for time, Harry, you can be sure he's going to deliver a political speech rather than something that's governmental. That's what he is. His State of the Union was one flat screed, a political screed.
But you notice how NBC, ABC, CBS, the networks that never want to give away programming, they all rush to cover him. And they'll do it again because the Democrats have that type of advantage with the mainstream media.
Yep.
Yeah, boy. It's interesting. Who was it? House Speaker Johnson said he didn't pass the torch. He got the torch ripped right out of his hands. I thought it was a powerful analogy. Your thoughts?
But, it's amazing how well Trump is doing. The fact that Kamala Harris, with this kind of multimedia boost and the press that she is getting, that Donald Trump continues to run ahead of her in virtually every poll since Harris became the named nominee.
Ari.
It really is a testament to, one, Trump's strengths, two, Harris's weaknesses. And if this is the best she's got when she's riding this high, it really makes me feel very good about Donald Trump's chances for November. Now, Trump's got to do everything right. He can't blow himself up. He can't make mistakes. He's got to take her seriously. Mm-hmm. He cannot say things about her that cost us even more women's votes. But this race is very winnable. Harris doesn't improve things much for Biden and for the Democrats, but she does improve things a little.
But by Sunday, she'll be Mother Teresa. You know that.
Yeah,
okay. They're already removing everything on the websites where she had the second most liberal voting record. All of that's going to be forgotten. She will be middle of the road for the people. She'll be saintly by Sunday. Yeah.
Yep. Republicans always have to work twice as hard. I mean, this last 3 weeks where the press went after Joe Biden was an aberration in American media coverage. And the only reason they went after him, the mainstream media, was because they were convinced he was going to lose to Trump. So they became activists playing a role in our system instead of reporters covering our system. They helped dump Joe Biden. That way they could get anybody else, because they're still their central goal is to defeat Donald Trump.
And that was clear that Trump was going to be winning big time by mid-June before the debate. His mistakes in the debate gave them a good reason to push him out.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, they were reading the tea leaves. Ari Fleischer, thank you so much. We love having you on.
Thank you, guys.
Take
Great
care,
to be
Ari.
with all of you. Tony, you too.
Take care.
Thanks, Ari. Bye, Ari. Thanks so much. And John, I understand you did a big interview with Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. And he talked a lot about Obama. He also talked a lot about the shooting of President Trump, the assassination attempt. And we got a little clip, I think, right?
Well, I would call him the coach.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Let's listen to the coach.
Senator Tom Tuberville, better known as the coach. And he is one common sense guy from Alabama, and they don't want President Trump reelected because they know that he has the courage to set things straight, and they don't want him there because the deep state does not want things to be set straight. They want to be doing things their way. And I've said this to a few people. Do you think there's more to that assassination than meets the eye?
Well, the deep state machine is for real. I can tell you that, a.k.a. Soros, the progressive left, Hollywood, the elites. Do I think anything was set up with that assassination attempt? Well, it's very, very interesting how all this came down. I know a lot of the Secret Service around President Trump for the last 4 or 5 years. I play golf with him. I've got to know him. They would do anything to protect President Trump. But he has not had enough people. He's been short-changed on personnel, things that he needs to protect himself. But, the deep state could care less. And whether they had something to do with it, hopefully we will find out. But you know as well as I do, John, we still don't know who shot John Kennedy 60 or 70 years ago.
There's all kinds of turmoil going around. Who really pushed out Joe Biden? Who made Kamala ascend to the presidency? And that after Joe Biden wrote that letter, 5 minutes later, he endorsed Kamala because he was so angry at what was going on. He wanted to do that, which took President Obama, who rumors are was orchestrating everything, and President Obama has not endorsed Kamala. That was not the orchestra that he was playing. And what do you hear in your neck of the woods?
Well, I know for a fact, I talked to them personally, several senators up here that have the sights set on being the President of the United States one day. They were already lined up, putting things together for a run in the Democratic convention. They were shut down overnight saying, "You're done. Shut up. This is how it's going to be. Kamala Harris is going to be our nominee." And this came from the deep state machine. They'd been working on it since the debacle of the debate back in June. They knew that Joe Biden, it wasn't that he was sick, that he wasn't running, it wasn't because he was 81 years old or a criminal, it's because he couldn't win. That's the reason they pulled him out. Now they think Kamala Harris can win. It's going to be a beatdown, but it's going to be a hard one. We have got to make sure we go out and vote. But they'll have the machine buyer. They'll have all kinds of money behind her. But at the end of the day, there's probably several thousand Democrats that were a lot more experienced, a lot more capable of running for president of the United States of this country.
I've said that it should have been an open convention and let the people decide, not a couple of individuals.
And I can't wait to hear the rest of that, John. That's going to be on
Sunday morning, 9:00.
Awesome. Great interview. And when we come back, everybody, we are going to be talking with Fox News' Joe Concha about the media's role in covering up for Kamala Harris. Some big bombshells. You don't want to miss it.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, it looks like the media is playing cover-up for Kamala Harris. And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby is Joe Concha, the great media expert there at Fox News. Also, by the way, Joe has a perfectly timed new book. It's called Progressively Worse. Joe, you can't make it up. They've been giving talking points to the media. I don't know if you saw this today, but here's what you should be calling Kamala. Here's what you should say about her. I mean, it's like a bunch of parrots.
Well, Rita, you call me a media expert. I'm a media czar.
That's correct. That's right.
You
that's
said
right.
That. I said niet. I said, no, that's not correct. Yeah, that's the thing, right? No, she was never a media czar. She was never a border czar. What are we talking about here? That title was never applied. Look, the bottom line is, once you get past titles, is that more than 10 million people have entered this country illegally since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office, including hundreds on the FBI terror watch list. We've had 8 people at least arrested in the recent weeks as far as San Francisco, New York, Philadelphia, ISIS-K terrorists found in this country. God knows how many more are planning the next October 7th or the next assassination attempt on Donald Trump. We heard about the Iranian plot that may have come about. So, yeah, this whole remake of Kamala Harris, the person who has run for president, remember, 2019, 2020, runs for president, and doesn't get one Democratic vote. And now she's the nominee in 2024 without one vote from a Democratic voter. Isn't that amazing? And then Joe Biden has the audacity to go on the air last night. Well, he didn't. He was reading for the teleprompter. But whoever wrote his words for him was saying, no, this is all about saving democracy. Oh, by the way, welcome to the Soviet Union, because we just installed somebody that not one voter even had a say in. And that's where we're at this point. Kamala Harris being portrayed as some sort of combination of Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Oprah, and it's
Mother
not
Teresa.
gonna work, I think.
Yeah, you forgot Mother Teresa
out there.
Unbelievable. But you tell me this, guys. How are voters in Pennsylvania? How are they going to like it when they hear that Kamala Harris has publicly stated, it's all on video and everything, that she supports banning fracking, banning fossil fuels? How do you think they're going to feel about that? How about in Michigan? Kamala Harris supports an electric vehicle mandate where new cars aren't sold anymore that actually, use gas. Instead, it's EVs where we have no infrastructure for that, by the way. How are auto workers going to feel about that?
Tell that to the Ford Motor Company that lost $2.5 billion.
I saw that
in the last 13 weeks on electric vehicles.
Isn't that amazing? You saw their stock just, boom, like a Boeing jet trying to land, like not good, right? Just straight down. And then, by the way, how about in Arizona? How do you think they feel, or New Mexico for that matter, because that's now a swing state apparently. How do you think they feel that Kamala Harris wants to abolish ICE? Once said that ICE compared them to the KKK, she did, and said illegal border crossings should be made legal. In other words, there's a slight, I don't want to say panic, but concern among Republicans when they see like a New York Times poll that came out, Donald Trump 48, Kamala Harris 47. Oh, my God, it's a close race. No, that's national polls. When you get down to the swing states, I'm telling you, she is a coastal elitist who could not remotely try to connect with steel workers in Pennsylvania, auto workers in Michigan, any workers anywhere else. When you think about all of her stances, which are truly incredible. I mean, she's for stopping offshore drilling at a time where gas prices are up 50% than they were under Donald Trump. She wants to eliminate private health insurance. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Conservative, whatever. You want to keep private health insurance, I would think, right? So her solution is for government solves all problems. Radicals never win. And in the end, I think once her record is exposed, and I know the media is not going to do that so much, but shows like this, social media, that's the great equalizer. I think that'll be the difference, guys.
Joe,
go ahead. How about defunding the police?
I was about to say that.
Cashless bail.
Yeah, and also she donated to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, too.
Exactly.
I mean, which was bailing out the rioters.
That's right. And she said she's open to the idea of convicted rapists, murderers, the Boston bomber. I'm open to that conversation. Maybe they should be able to vote. It's all about power and retaining it. So she'll say whatever. But remember what she said about foreign policy as far as Ukraine. Remember this quote? They asked her, this was during an interview in 2022, 1 week after Russia went into Ukraine. So explain to everybody what's going on here with Ukraine and Russia. She literally said this, verbatim quote, guys. So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong. Like, literally, that's a quote. So once all this gets out, I would hope, and the Trump campaign is doing everything they can to do that. I think the debate comes down to everything Trump versus Kamala, and it's going to be the same thing we saw with Trump versus Biden. I think Trump wipes the floor, and that's the end of her. But until then, you're going to hear about a close race. It's not close when you look at the swing states.
Now, don't insult the Eastern Coastal Elite. She is a progressive from California, period.
Good point. That's a different kind of elite when you want to make the country California, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's where we're at, Cats. Go figure.
By the way, there was the, GovStat? Remember, they came out. Did you see this? It was in 2020, and they listed who they believe is the most liberal senator, and they listed her. Now, they have apparently scrubbed it from their site. They're supposed to be a nonpartisan group, Joe Concha.
The people in Pyongyang right now, it's like, boy, you guys, I mean, we thought we were bad. That's even infinitely worse. Yeah, same thing. Border czar didn't exist. No, she's not really the most liberal senator. Remember, that's 100 senators, and she's considered more liberal, more to the left than Bernie friggin' Sanders. Are you kidding me? So I think once this comes out, and look at what her campaign has been so far, by the way. Yesterday, she went to a sorority house in Indiana, that key swing state. That was the first stop, okay, to talk about abortion. Then today, she was on literally with RuPaul's drag queens. That's the second interview. The minute she's exposed to anything remotely resembling a tough question, just like Joe Biden, take away the teleprompter, take away the script, and she's done because we've seen it. The brain is broken. She says profoundly confusing, odd word salads that, again, she couldn't even get to 2020 when she ran as a presidential candidate in 2019. Why should we believe that she's going to be a great candidate now?
Joe, did she raise abortion with the drag queens?
That's a very good question.
Just trying to figure out where they were on the issue,
Yeah, where did they go with that, right? Like, how does this apply to us? I got to listen to that interview, I guess, because that's what I do for a living. But, oh, man.
Can't make this up.
The real concern is because the president's control over foreign policy. If she got a hold of that, well, her view of Russia and Ukraine.
Little countries and big countries.
Well, she was in South Korea and she talked about the terrific alliance between North Korea and the United States and did not even correct it.
Yeah, and she said it over and over again. It's all on video.
Yeah, it's one thing, like, we speak all the time live on the air, right? And we're going to make a mistake once in a while, north, south, whatever. We confuse a name. That's fine. But if you say it over and over again, you actually don't know that you really are screwing up in real time. So, yeah, between that, you think China, in any way, shape, or form, if they see President Kamala Harris, that they're not going to go right into Taiwan? Of course they will, because they know she has no idea about any of this stuff.
They're testing the boundaries day one.
Yeah, exactly.
Day one, they tested the boundaries.
The Russians tested it last night. Russia and China came pretty close.
They want to see what a lame duck president, because they want to see what a lame duck presidency looks like.
He doesn't even know.
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to figure out.
Scary,
what they can get away with the next 6 months.
What are they going to get away for the next 6 months?
But it's the first time their planes were together, Russian planes and People's Republic of China planes.
Yeah, we have KT McFarland coming up who's going to talk all about that, guys. Wow. Thank you so much, Joe Concha. We love you. We appreciate you. And you got to come back when your book comes out.
Oh, it's done. I'm there next week, guys.
Awesome. Good. Well, then we'll see. We'll talk to you next week.
This is the show to do it on.
That's great. We love you, Joe. Congrats, my friend. Thanks so much. And again, Joe's awesome book, Progressively Worse, coming out next week. John, we've got some big headlines today.
Well, give us the big headlines sponsored by our friends at Goya.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And legislators in the House are condemning Vice President Kamala Harris for her management of the southern border. The resolution condemns Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee for president, noting that she served as Biden administration's border czar. The resolution, by the way, passed with support of 6 Democrats. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with President Biden at the White House today. The two leaders held a meeting in the Oval Office, and he is also meeting right now with Vice President Harris at this hour. Also, finally, fewer Americans are filing first-time jobless claims. The Labor Department said today that it received 235,000 requests for unemployment benefits in the week ending July 20th. And those are the big headlines from Goya of today.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we're back. And during the second half of our show, we have KT McFarland. We have Dr. Mark Siegel. All of a sudden, COVID is very rampant, and we'll find out how rampant is it. Make sure you wash your hands 10 times a day. And we have Mark Penn to find out what's really happening in the Democratic Party. Rita, why don't you bring in KT?
And joining us now is KT McFarland, Deputy National Security Advisor. She was under President Trump. KT, first of all, this is really scary. It was like a few hours before President Biden speaks last night, and Chinese and Russian military warplanes are intercepted by NORAD. First time they teamed together in the skies right off the coast of Alaska. What does that say to you?
Well, what it says is that all the bad guys are making a move now because they see an extraordinary window of opportunity that they didn't even think they would have. But with the weakness out of the Biden administration, which is always weak from the very beginning, but now because of the confusion and who's the candidate and who's the president and who's not going to be, it's chaos at the White House. And so our adversaries know that this is when they could make a move because Washington will be too distracted, too divided. They won't even be able to figure out which phone to answer if the bad guys start making a move. So I think that what you've seen is the Russian and the Chinese are teaming up together to do these, quote, military exercises. And then the Iranians have unleashed the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas against Israel. And even in the last 2 weeks, Iran has let it be known that they're just a few weeks away from nuclear weapons, and it was confirmed by the American Secretary of State. So they all know that there'll be no response. They can get away with whatever they want. And so I think they all make a move.
You know, KT, what did you make of last night? President Biden said, no wars. U.S. is not involved in any wars. I think everybody's sitting there going, well, aren't we helping Israel defend for its existence? Aren't we helping Ukraine? I mean, it was such a preposterous comment.
But, does anybody really believe him? I mean, he may be the only person in the country that believes what he's saying, because he's just reading off the teleprompters. But when he says no new wars and nobody died under his presidency, kind of conveniently forgetting the Afghanistan withdrawal. Look, the world is on fire. Donald Trump left the world a safe place. We had peace in the Middle East. The Russians were not invading anybody. They were bankrupt. The Chinese were in their corner because President Trump was able to use tariffs and trade to negotiate good deals with the Chinese. But now, because of President Biden, particularly because of his energy policy, energy's gone sky high. Russia's rich, Iran's rich. And so they're all having this is their moment, and they're all going to seize this moment. And that's why I find that my greatest fear is what could happen in the next 6 months when there's nobody in charge.
KT, that's Tony Carbonetti. That leads to my question. I mean, you know this better than anyone. We're not going to war with Russia and China in 6 months, but what are the little things that they can do that in a normal time we would not let them do?
Okay, so for example, Iran could declare itself a nuclear weapons state. They could say, we have nuclear weapons. They might do some kind of a demonstration, and there would be very little pushback from the Biden administration. And if Israel wanted to do something to, say, stop Iran's nuclear program, it's pretty clear the Biden administration would probably separate itself, would not let Israel do it, would probably condemn Israel if it made a move against Iran. So if you're Iran, you're looking at this window of opportunity. Mm-hmm. You could declare you're a nuclear weapons state because you don't want to have to deal with Donald Trump. You want to have this be a fait accompli so that if Trump comes in January, it's already happened. And so that's the kind of thing they'll do. Now, what would the consequences of that be, Tony? If Iran gets nuclear weapons, the Saudis have already said they'll get nuclear weapons.
Publicly said
They'll buy them. Everybody will have nukes.
Jordan, just run the gamut. The UAE, Qatar, everyone gets it then.
Yeah.
Hand them out like M&Ms.
Yeah. I mean, in a part of the world that shouldn't even be playing with matches.
Yes.
They'll all have nukes.
Yeah, really scary. It's such a different contrast, KT, what we heard from President Trump even the other night, where he said, if they don't let the hostages out, wait till you see what happens. It's such a different, even just delivery, from what we saw when President Trump was in office, what he's saying now. Our president is MIA, and even Kamala Harris on this. I mean, they rarely, if ever, talk about the hostages. I'm glad today they're meeting with some of the hostage families, but they cowered when Netanyahu was speaking in Congress.
And look, what happened in Washington yesterday and today, where you had Bibi Netanyahu, who's prime minister of a country that's fighting for its very existence, and making a plea before Congress, and half of the Democrats in the House and Senate didn't even show up. The vice president, who has a constitutional responsibility to be there, she skipped it. And then
there's reports right now, KT, that she will be meeting with him privately today.
Yeah. Apparently they're meeting right now. Apparently.
Yeah, but why? Why is it private? Why does she not want the photo op? Because she's so nervous about losing Muslim voters in Michigan and Minnesota to the point where you had literally, riots in the street right outside of the Capitol at Union Station, where the American flag was pulled down off the flagpole, and the Hamas flag was put up in its place, and nobody stopped it, and the Democrats didn't even condemn it. It was like, okay, we're kind of siding with Hamas on this one, or we don't want to look like we're too close to Israel. They don't get the fact that what this does is it just invites aggression.
KT,
and that's what they're going to have. Hi, Ed.
Yeah. If Harris had shown up in Congress at the joint session, she would have to sit up there right next to Johnson and reacting to everything that was said by Netanyahu. And you can see how carefully the Democrats were with that.
And watched by 10 million people.
Yes.
Exactly.
And run over and over in an ad of her clapping, right? Which she wouldn't want.
That's why she dodged it. But she can do a private meeting now, and they release whatever she wants to release and control it. She couldn't control it if she was sitting in that seat.
Yes. But the problem is that she's much further to the left than Biden is. At least Biden's people are trying to help Israel a little bit, even though they don't want to side with Israel. She's made it pretty clear she wants nothing to do with Israel. Well, maybe they have a private meeting, but the important meeting Netanyahu's going to have is tomorrow with Donald Trump.
KT, thank you so much. Keep up the good work, and, God save America.
God save America. From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, KT.
And right now we're going to come up with
Dr. Mark Siegel.
Yes.
We got, the great Dr. Mark Siegel.
Well, listen, here's the question. Why doesn't KT or her husband ever come to the breakfast on Saturday morning in Southampton when they're out there?
I'll invite them. She's been around, and her husband is a good guy, and he'll come for sure.
I want to meet them.
I'm going to see you at breakfast tomorrow morning.
All my people is at this breakfast, so.
It's going to be a WABC breakfast soon. I get so many texts, so many emails that a lot of people are sick and nobody's doing a story on it, that COVID is going around. I got a text from one of my good friends, and Aldamado's friend, that for 2 weeks she's had COVID. Is it going around real bad and we're keeping it a secret?
It's going around real bad. It's the KP2, KP3 variety. By the way, there's a lot of it in the Paris Games. For those who are following, the Australian water polo players have it. It started off in California. It's spread east. It's all over the place, and people are getting it on planes and bringing it. And I actually have found that COVID virgins are getting it. I've been treating the last few days. I think I'm the only one left, Rita. I'm the only virgin left.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I have not had COVID either. I have not. So we're in the pack.
Knock on wood.
Did you have it? Did you guys have it?
You
did. Okay. Ed, you had it, right?
I don't know if I had it or not. I had tested and a test came up negative, but a cold went on for 2 weeks. What are the symptoms, doctor?
By the way, I have to confess something. I'm back to using masks in my exam rooms in the office, and today I walked into the office and a patient was sitting there, and he said, I have red eyes, cough, and a sore throat, and I feel weak. I go, bye. I'm not examining you. Bye.
Yeah.
I sent him to the hospital to get tested. He had a negative test at home. But the problem is that those tests aren't 100% accurate because you could test positive.
I bought a bunch of those tests, by the way. I have some if you need some. The pre-negatives.
By the way, real quick, before we let you go, what can people do? I mean, what should we be doing? Because it seems like it's a pretty virulent strain that's out there.
Don't go near President Biden. He may still be contagious.
But he's mentally fine.
Well, I mean, what you can do is to be aware of it. And by the way, I actually am a big believer in Paxlovid. I think it really works. I use it a lot. I use it even on younger people. I think it decreases symptoms and severity. And I think, you could stay home when you're sick. That's a good thing to do.
In all seriousness.
Wash your hands 10 times a day.
Yes.
And don't be in people's faces.
Yes.
If you stand 3 feet away, okay, but don't be in people's faces.
Yeah, close talkers.
Dr. Cassimatidis is absolutely right. The doctor is right. And again, I'm wearing a mask in my exam room, sorry to say, but my patients are not, but I am. I think it adds a little bit of something, and somehow I'm lucky. Rita, you and I are lucky. Now, if you tested our genetics, Rita, you would find that we are not – I know what we're doing differently. We're not making certain antibodies. This is the propensity to COVID, catching COVID, has to do with the genetic makeup. Rita and I are in a group of great fortitude. We're survival of the fittest here, and we're going to make it.
We are.
The other thing is,
super species. There you go.
If your vitamin D level is over 50, then you have a chance of not getting it.
By the way, I saw those studies too, and I agree with a certain Greek doctor, Dr. Mikolos. I agree with that. Vitamin D is huge. By the way, is anybody else here angry at the White House for the way they have completely obscured and continue to have no transparency on the president, claiming his health isn't the reason he's stepping down and not running when the entire United States disagrees with that?
Yes.
Has this White House ever told the truth?
No.
You've answered the question.
There you go.
I mean, it's very, very sad what's going on, and the American people have been swallowing it. Is that the nice way to say it?
Yeah.
Swallowing it. And now the media has been given instructions by the Kamala Harris White House. This is your talking points, and this is what you should be telling people. I mean,
you know what term is trending on social media? Bold-faced lie. How's that one?
Well,
yeah.
Let me tell you something. It's very, very sad what's going on in our country, and and now Christopher Wray, the FBI director, says, "Well, we're checking to see if President Trump was shot or not."
Oh, man.
Now, you know what it is? We're coming down to the fact that...
That's the most horrible thing of all, by the way. How dishonoring is that?
They cannot take a chance on President Trump getting reelected because they know that he has the courage to go out and say, damn you guys, we're going to tell the American people the truth, and we're going to clean up the deep state.
Yeah, he's going to clean up house, and they don't want that.
Yeah, by the way, cleaning up health, and you forgot, speaking of the biggest threat to health in the country is the border, by the way. How about that President Trump will close it? I mean, you can't even, you go close to the border, you can't find anybody with a driver's license anymore because they weren't born here.
But they're giving them voters registration cards.
They got health insurance.
Right.
Health insurance.
Yeah, and education and hotels and everything else. It's incredible. Mark Siegel, we love you. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you and I are super species. So that's good.
I want you to come to one of those breakfasts. We're super species. When are you coming to one of those breakfasts? It's boring there without you, Rita.
Well, thank you. We'll have to work on that. It's been a couple of years since I've been to the breakfast, actually. So we'll have to work on that, my friend. Thank you. Very
I'm not
sweet.
allowed to invite you, but someone there.
Yeah, I know someone who, I think I know someone else who could invite me. Maybe, yeah. Thanks, Dr. Siegel. Great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Let's take a break. And who are we coming back with?
We have Mark Penn with the Inside Scoop.
A Democrat, a pollster. Let's find out what the truth is. Who is orchestrating the happenings at the White House? Let's take that break first.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we are back here on Katz and Cosby. What's going on with Obama? He's basically the highest level person who has not endorsed Kamala Harris. There is a lot of stuff going on. And joining us now is the great pollster, Mark Penn. Mark, what do you think is happening with Obama? We're seeing sort of different stories out there that he wanted somebody else or he doesn't think Kamala can win. What are you hearing?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with how the big fish want to do their endorsements. So if you ask me, he's good with her, but he wants to do the endorsement like at a special time with his own big event, and not kind of be lumped in or put out something on X. So I suspect this is all, and he loves all this little speculation, and that makes his endorsement even more important. I wouldn't worry. He's endorsing, and I just think he wants to kind of make it a big show.
What about the option of like Michelle Obama out there? There's even some rumors that they're who knows where this is going.
Yeah, the Kamala Harris ship has sailed. The delegates are lined up. The polls are looking good. The money is coming in. That's why I do think this is just a little bit of a shell game here to get to have like a big announcement where he gets to be.
So the only mistake that could happen is the only person that could beat Donald Trump is Donald Trump himself.
Well, I always say that a Donald Trump presidential race is Trump v. Trump. And so
I agree.
I think people know that he's. Oh, look! First of all, I don't know anybody who has to run a second presidential race, who has to now run, who won the first presidential race and now has to run a second one. I don't think it's really incredible in that sense. And are they really going to even ask her questions and make her really sit down and press her on all the issues or not? And I think Trump has to, get his messaging down, all this stuff about democratic election and all that. Really, he should just go to the differences on the issues, because that's, I think the biggest differences.
Mark, your expertise is as a pollster. What do the polls tell you? It's been, 3 or 4 days now, and enough polls are out with respect to Harris being the Democrat presidential candidate. How's it changed the scene?
Well, I think to some extent she's been deified, because nobody really liked her as vice president. And if you look at the New York Times poll that just came out, Trump is still winning, right? He's not winning by 7 points, but if Trump wins by 1 or 2 in a national poll, that means he's winning by 5 points in a lot of the swing states. So I think it's fair to say that Trump is still winning, but it's also fair to say that she has had this huge bump in her favorable ratings, which were not that good. They were about 36, 37, 38 favorable, and now they're like 46. And it's not that she did anything other than become the nominee.
Mark Penn, what about when she picks a vice president? There was a report yesterday for her candidate that she may do it in the next week or two, because they want to try to clear the field. She has to obviously do it soon too, but they want to try to expedite it too. So then if it goes to the convention, it's already sort of almost a done deal, a fait accompli. How important is that, and who do you think she should pick?
I'm kind of partial to Shapiro, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, because it's a critical state, and also I think that would kind of give her better credentials on Israel, because I think she made a huge mistake not going to the Netanyahu. But everyone says it's going to be the governor of Arizona, and that's what everybody's lined up. Remember all this talk about... You mean
the senator, right? Mark
yes,
Kelly.
That's right, the senator, yes. And so, but all this talk about the VPs, and in the end, it matters only if it's a disastrous choice.
Although, what's interesting, Mark? I think in this case, if she goes for Mark Kelly, the senator there, I actually think it helps her in this case, because the border she is so weak on, being the border czar, even though the White House wants to pretend she wasn't. She is so vulnerable on the border, which she's by all accounts has been a disaster. He's been a little better on it, and he's a border state there in Arizona. Don't you think in this case maybe it does help her a little bit?
I don't really think so. It's such a disaster on that issue. There's no excuse for having been the border czar and now denying that she's the border czar. No, I don't think that will help. Look, I think it's also unfair that Trump picked a vice president, which he might not have picked against Harris. He might have done better. Might have picked a Rubio or a Scott. I think she's going to do very well with the black vote. I think the question mark is the Latino vote. I think the Latino voters are very upset about the economy. 45% of them didn't like her, and that there's a real race for that, which is why I think Trump would have been better off with Rubio, but these voters are still up for grabs.
Interesting. Hey, Cox.
So how about the young vote, the youth vote that Trump has picked up a lot of that? What happens to that now that there's a younger candidate?
I think she'll, I think there are certain voters she'll do better with. I think she'll do better than with. It's interesting. I think she'll do better with younger voters. She will do worse with older voters. She'll do better with black voters. She'll do worse with, Midwestern working class voters. And she'll do very well with elite, progressive voters. So, and when you put all that into the blender, it seems to come out pretty close to what it was, with some pluses or minuses, and with her getting a kind of a free boost up. And Trump is going to have to figure out, how to run the second presidential campaign effectively, and which I don't think he's figured out yet.
Did she get the black vote back? Because it looked like that Trump was getting most of it, or a lot of it.
Yeah. Yes, that would be my experience, but not necessarily the Latino vote.
Tony Carbonetti?
I think she definitely comes and gets the youth vote. And I said a long time ago, whichever party replaced their candidate would get a big bump in the youth vote. And the question is, can she keep it? So she'll get a surge there, and then she has to go out and keep it. Let's see what she does.
Mark?
Well,
what do you think?
No, I agree with that. I think there's a big difference between women and guys. I agree.
Gets back to that abortion and the transgender thing I asked before.
I agree.
I think that Biden was doing better with women. She will do even better with women, but Trump was doing better with men, and so he may do a little bit better with men in this equation.
Look, she certainly is to the left of Joe Biden. She's a California progressive. That's where her whole reputation is made. How do you think that plays in the whole picture?
Well, I think that's her biggest vulnerability. If she can be successfully painted as too far to the left, too out of step, will hurt the economy, will keep the border open. If he can successfully paint her on those issues, well, then her numbers will go down, and that's probably his best path to winning. But that's the most important distinction. And if she comes off as, look, I'm just here for national unity, for freedom. Don't ask me any questions. I won't answer them.
Right.
Let's not talk policy. Give me a free ride. Deify me in the press. And a lot of that is sort of what's going on. So Trump is going to have to figure out how, without being too hostile, how to define her before she really defines herself. And see, that's the big disadvantage. In a 1-year campaign, you have time to define your opponent. In a 100-day campaign, it's a lot trickier.
Yes, we're getting down in those days. Last question is if she picks Josh Shapiro and her on our opposite sides on fracking, on fossil fuels, etc.
Well, but that's really the question. Is she going to make a move to the center and a move towards Israel and the center and energy, or is she just going to stay in her more progressive lane and figure she could win that way? Well, if she wants to make a move the other way, Shapiro would be helpful. And if she doesn't, then she's not going to do that, and it'll be up to the Trump campaign to effectively define her and what that means to be a California progressive.
Mark Penn, thank you so much for coming on. And now it's 104 days to Election Day. And let's see what the heck happens. And what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.